How's it going, YouTube? This is Skull, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program Science Mode Episode 7. And this is probably going to be the final flight of this particular configuration of rocket. This is the exact same one as the one that took us to Minmus, except I took the liberty of adding those new solar panels that we just unlocked with our brand new science from the last episode, because I really didn't want to lose electric charge for this mission, which is going to send a Kerbal to interplanetary space. Yes, we are actually going to go farther now in Kerbal Space Program than we have ever done in real life as the human race. The farthest humans have ever gone from Earth was the crew of Apollo 13. They went behind the moon on the way back to Earth, as many of you know, because of an emergency. And they went just a little bit farther than all the other crews on all the other Apollo missions that went to the moon. We have yet to go beyond about 400,000 kilometers away from Earth. So, yeah, so we have a Kerbal who is going to be taking a bunch of science payloads out to just the edge of the Kerbal system, just barely get out of sphere of influence, get all the science, and then come right back. We could easily make this a multi-biome mission. We could easily go into interplanetary space, then come back, go into Minmus orbit, pick up some of that science we lost last time because we lost our electricity, or we could just come straight back. And I decided, you know what, let's make this nice and short, just come straight back. Anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm actually getting a gravity assist from the moon in order to push my spacecraft a little farther out using the exact same amount of fuel that I would otherwise be using. So I'm using fuel just to get to the sphere of influence of the moon, and then I'm using the moon's gravity to just push me out into interplanetary space without me having to use any fuel beyond that. It doesn't really save me that much fuel, in all honesty, but this was a good way to pass by the moon, make sure we had gotten all the science that we could from, at the very least, high lunar orbit, and preferably low as well, but unfortunately, no, we were unable to get the low lunar orbit stuff. And honestly, I think that's because in order for you to get the low lunar orbit, you actually have to be in orbit around the moon. And as you can see here through the 4x time acceleration, that is wonderful in post-production to speed these videos up that take 2 hours to make, you know, just a hair over 10 minutes for you to watch. We did not get any new science around the moon. So I'm just going to put myself down to the lunar periaps, the closest point to the moon, and check again, and I'm still high over the moon, so it doesn't matter. So we're going to leave the moon now. The moon has done its job. It has slung us out into deeper space, and now all that's left to do is to go out into deep space and gather up some science and as much as we can, and then bring it all back to Kerbal to hopefully unlock more stuff in the tech tree. So, yeah. Wow, will you look at Earth or Kerbal way out there in the distance. You can't even see the moon right now. That might be because it's actually behind Kerbal. Anyway, so, Yurliana Kerbal, you are the first Kerbal to leave the sphere of influence of Kerbal. In fact, I think you have so much fuel, you could go probably to another planet if you so wish, but that is not the purposes of this mission. The purposes of this mission is to just go barely into interplanetary space and collect some data. The all-important data. So let's see what the materials bay has to say. Materials study while in space high over the sun. The rocks show little signs of change. Some phosphorus samples, I can't pronounce that, sorry, glow a bright blue color, indicating the high radiation of interplanetary space. We're going to keep that. Let's go ahead and get a crew report. You stare up at space, and to the left at space, and to the right. You slowly realize that pretty much everywhere you look at is space. We can go ahead and transmit this, no problem, because these awesome new solar panels right here, which can, as you can see up here, replenish our batteries even after we've used it up. So that's awesome. Let's go ahead and quick save real quick. Wait a few seconds before sending Yurliana onto an EVA. And see what you have to say. The farthest EVA ever from Kerbal, which I can't even see right now. There it is, over there. So, what do you have to say, Yurliana? You feel kind of small right now. You hope you know where you're going. We're going to keep that. Go ahead and go down here and collect this. Collect data. Yes, remove. And restore. And get up a little. Grab. Board. Perfect. Let's go ahead and quick save again. You can never quick save too many times, especially with the 64-bit version. Let's go ahead and open up the service bay. I could have sworn I had a barometer, but couldn't find it when I upgraded my spacecraft here. Let's go ahead and observe the mystery goo. The goo looks like a rainbow. We're going to get that, and we're going to actually observe 2 mystery goos, get double the science. Double the science is always good. I'm going to keep that as well. And finally, the thermometer. Let's go ahead and log this temperature. Measuring the temperature of space appears to be quite impossible, as there is no matter around to be either hot or cold, except the spacecraft and the thermometer itself. I feel like I've seen this one before. Go ahead and keep that, and that's basically all the science we can do. About the most we can hope for on the rest of this mission, after we get back to Kerbal, is to hoping that we land in a new biome so we can do even more science there. We're going to have to see what happens. So now that we have gotten all of that science, it's now time to return to Kerbal. And for this, it's basically just as simple as our relative velocity away from Kerbal is actually not that high. So it's really as simple as just pointing back at the planet and just firing our engines that way. It turns out this spacecraft has a ton of energy, a ton of delta V. I could probably get it all the way to another planet if I wished. I wasn't going to risk it, because if I got stranded out in deep space, that Kerbal's probably dead. But anyway, so as you can see, we're still on our second stage there. And we still have a third stage that hasn't even been touched yet. But that's okay, because I'm going to need to use that fuel to help slow me down enough. The heat shield probably could have taken all this, but honestly, I was tired of micromanaging, making sure the heat shield was always dead center. If it was off by just a hair, it had a tendency to risk blowing up. For some reason, the rockets and the fuel tanks don't overheat when they're pointed directly into the atmosphere. So keeping these rockets and all of this extra fuel on, even though this is a lot of extra inertia, it also means that I have a lot of fuel to burn to hopefully slow me down a whole lot faster, which is what I'm doing here. You can see the re-entry effects, and on a normal heat shield, this would be some serious heat. But on this engine, which is designed to literally breathe fire, I guess it's not that big of a deal. So it's just a matter of burning up all this fuel, and you can see we're already below orbital velocity, which is about 2,200 meters per second, 2,300, something like that. So once we get below that, we're below orbital velocity, and great, now that stage is empty, it's time to ditch it. See if we can't get any last minute science. Unfortunately, we are over the grasslands, and we have all this science already, so there's really not much we can get there. Going to go ahead and jettison that heat shield, and as soon as I do, we become so aerodynamically unstable, I begin to panic a little bit. But going to get some last minute science, and now it's just about time to deploy those parachutes, and yes, be sure to check your staging, folks. When you hit the space bar, that activates the next stage, and in this case, that next stage was my science modules. Oops. So we're going to jettison that other heat shield, really no reason to keep it with us. Luckily for me, I had a scientist on board who took almost all of that science from the Science Junior and from the materials bay and all that stuff. Most of the science I got to keep. There might have been one or two big ones that I missed out on, but we can easily just pick those up later. We ended up actually getting a whole lot of science this mission, which was really awesome. So good thing I had a scientist on board who could retrieve all of that data, store it in the capsule where it was nice and safe. And because of that, we ended up getting enough science. Look at that, over 800 science, which is enough for us to, well, first of all, we're going to unlock this, which gets us the barometer, which is another scientific instrument. Now we can get even more science. And basically, we get to unlock this entire level in the tech tree, but the barometer was the one I was most excited for. And that also allows for us to get one more thing on this next level. And there's so many options. I could get more batteries there. I could get some stuff. I could get some ladders here. The mobile processing lab is actually really good because that allows for me to process my data and then transmit it and get a lot more back than if I were just straight up transmit it. So the mobile processing module is definitely the one that has caught my attention the most. Well, let's see, we got other things, aerodynamics, monopropellant tanks, which could be nice, but we're doing science. I think the mobile processing module is the one that I'm going to go for. And that pretty much concludes the video today. I hope you all enjoy. Come back next week for another video. Thanks everyone for watching, and stay tuned for more.